Hello, and welcome to Dialogue with Jenay. I am so glad that you tuned in this evening on this Sunday. It was a very beautiful day here in Metro Atlanta, but it's going to be an even beautiful night. I have a very special guest joining me, who I consider her to be an overcomer as well. But this month I decided to do an overcomer series because this month is a very heavy month for me as far as dealing with my emotions, because it is not only is it the month where my daughter at the age of 7 transitioned to heaven due to a pediatric brain tumor, but it's also the month where my brother transitioned to heaven. The saying, you hear one day and gone the next. Well, that's literally what happened to him 2 years ago, and the day after his birthday. And so yesterday we recognized or honored my daughter's sixth Heavenversary. And so I decided this month, as a person who is, when there's a lot that you're dealing with emotionally from the different trials and tribulations you've gone through in your life, it's hard to sometimes it can be hard to just get up in the morning. Sometimes it can be hard to just breathe. And so for me, I not only want to survive everything that I have gone through, but I want to thrive through it. And so I thought that this month, the best way to thrive through it is to honor other overcomers and their stories and share those with you, because sometimes we can get caught up and think that we're the only ones dealing with things, and why is the world against me, and does God really love me? And so by me sharing stories with you from other overcomers, it's my hope that you will know that the world is not out to get you, that yes, God does love you, and that yes, he is still in the business of making miracles happen, despite what may have happened in your life or someone else's life. He is still in the business of making miracles happen. And so I am very excited to bring to you a very special person who is dear to my life. She's been there. We kind of grew up together as dancers with Jacob's Dance Academy. And she was a little younger than myself. And you know how it is. You can be 3 or 4 or 5 uh, years older than someone, and think that you're about 10 or 15 or 20 years, right? So, but I always admired her for her gift and her talent that God has blessed her with. And so it's funny because she came back into my life at a time when I needed her most, and I really didn't even realize that. And it was when I was on bed rest with my firstborn, and she came not one time, not 2 times, but over 3 times she came to my bedside, and she has not left me yet. So I'm very honored to have Miss Nicole McCann join me this evening. Welcome, Nicole.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I am doing well. How are you?
Well, I'm doing pretty good, given that, this month is a very heavy emotional month, for myself. But, I think about the blessings that, we have and we face, that God continues to, give us grace to make it through moments such as these.
Right. And I was going to say, I actually share a Heavenversary, so not celebration because I don't really think of it that way, but my father also passed away in the month of March. So March 10th, which is coming up, is his Heavenversary. So we have that. I don't know if you ever knew that, but I know that he passed away, but that March is his Heavenversary month as well. So
Yeah, no, we've talked about it. different times, but I can't. You clearly, I would remember March.
Right.
So yes, so it's a lot that we have in common,
Yeah.
and it's good to share that as well. It's good to
Yeah.
share that as well. So I am glad to have you here as one of the overcomers that I'm going to highlight this month. Like I said, I do believe that sharing is caring,
Mhm.
and allowing your story to bless other people, I believe would definitely help them where they are, or perhaps one day where they will find themselves. And even though stories may not be similar, just the spirit of the overcomer, just seeing how you overcame, your trials and tribulations can give someone strength to overcome theirs as well. So, do you even consider yourself an overcomer?
I do actually. And I think really anybody who has lived long enough and is still living and is standing and breathing and can get up out of bed from day to day, I think everybody has an overcomer spirit in them. So, but yes, I do consider myself an overcomer.
Right. Now, let me ask you this. So, we know the definition of an overcomer, right? It's a person who overcomes something, one who succeeds in dealing with or getting control, of some problem or difficulty. So why would you consider yourself an overcomer? Is it something specific to one thing, or is it many things, or just a general feeling that you have about yourself?
I would say, of course, when you talk about me being an overcomer, or even when you approached me about doing this series with you, I immediately went to my journey of infertility. And, I've been speaking about that a lot lately because, of course, it just helps with what I do, just my side passion, which is educating people on safer beauty and all of that. And so that story is one that always comes to the forefront. But as I've stopped to think about just my life in general, I realized that there have been a lot of things that I have overcome. So I would say it's not just one thing, but and of course, when you're in different stages of your life, something can seem really just detrimental or a really big thing. And you can look back and say, oh, that wasn't that great. But in that moment, in that time, and in that season, I did overcome whatever the situation was, because I think, people overcome financial difficulties, health issues, they overcome career situations or situations of the heart, matters of the heart when it comes to love, or whether it be the loss of whatever. I mean, you could have been robbed, lost a lot of money, or maybe you lost a limb, which my husband, that's part of his story. Or you've lost a child, whether your child had been born or your child was still in utero. I mean, it's so many different forms of loss and things that people have to deal with. That's why I say, I mean, if you're living, because we know like there is no easy life. Like nobody is living and going through day to day and not having to face any types of challenges. And so, it just varies. And like I said, when I think about my life, I could come up with a lot of different challenges that I faced. And I don't know if you want me to talk about those right now, but I I can just think of silly things and then things that were really serious and were things that I really had to dig deep down inside myself or just turn it over to God to help me come out on the other side.
Right, right. It's funny how I remember back in, hold on, it sounds like there's some feedback when I talk. I don't know if you hear it or anything. Okay. Um, it's funny how when you mentioned when we, something that's very trivial, and as children, I remember when people used to come back to high school, college kids would come back and say, oh, y'all got it lucky, cherish this time and all of that stuff, but you don't really understand those words until you become an adult. And it's like I remember, preparing for this series, I was thinking back over my life, and I remember I grew up going to Venetian Hills Elementary School. And then I had to switch because it was a K through 7 and I was in the 5th grade and they decided to stop at the 5th grade. And then I had to transition and go to a new school at Kaya Heights that was also an elementary up to 7th because for whatever reason, my mom didn't want me to go to middle school. She wanted me to, go there and then transition to Frederick Douglass High School. But and I remember being a new kid, and that's something I had to overcome, because of course being a new kid, you get picked on, people look at you, they thought I talk country, and all of that stuff, which I did. That's courtesy of my best friend, from Bainbridge, Georgia. So I get it honestly, I'm just saying, but I would I would choose to be the new kid every single day of my life than have to deal with the loss of my daughter or, having my brother who's always been there for me since I've been on the earth, since he's my 6 years my senior, that I expected that we were going to grow old together and, experience life, together and all of that stuff to be gone. Yeah, I signed up to be the new kid every day, so yeah. So what are some things that you would consider looking back at it now as, yeah, that's really not that serious, but yeah, it's still something you did have to overcome. What are some of those?
Yeah, I would say, if I go way back, like childhood years, I remember being picked on and kids talking about me. And in that moment in time, of course, it was hurtful. It hurt my feelings and would come home crying and had to figure out how do I deal with that or not let what people thought about me and said about me impact me, who I was. And of course, like now you look back, you're like, well, everybody gets picked on, at some point. But like I said, in that moment, it was a big deal because, in your little world at that time, like having friends and having people that you were in school with think highly of you, or at least for me, that was important. So that was one thing. When I think about, like you, I did change schools a lot. So I always had a group of friends at school that I would get comfortable with. And then I had to move on. So for instance, I was in a private school for kindergarten through third. Then I left there. Well, it went up to third. So I had no choice but to go somewhere else. But that was like a breaking point where the kids I grew up with for those 4 years were going to whatever school was in their neighborhood because it was private school. So kids came from all over. And then I ended up going to a school in DeKalb County, but only for 4th and 5th grade. And the school went up to 7th grade. So made a group of friends there, then had to transition. And I went to a middle school in Cobb County, so there was another group of friends. And then for high school, ended up going to a whole nother school, to another private school. So definitely having to overcome that fear of meeting new people, starting over at a new school, learning, new teachers, new buildings, new campuses, what have you. That's something that I look at that I had to overcome. And while that's not a big deal now, again, in that moment, it consumed me. It was a big part of my life. When I got to college, I had to overcome not having my parents around. I was very much a daddy's girl up until a certain point. That's another story for another time. But my mom and I had a really close relationship. We still have a close relationship. And I called her every single day because I did not like that feeling of not having my mom right there with me in college. And the other thing, I tore my ACL in college, had never had a major happen or have to go have surgery before, had to deal with that, learning how to walk all over again, doing simple things, bending my leg, whatever, but that was that. And while I was in college, I lost my dad. So overcoming the loss of a parent, now really that was a big thing because it happened so suddenly and it wasn't anything that I was expecting or had been preparing for. And I know loss of a loved one, parent or otherwise, whether it's suddenly or whether it's something you know is coming, either way, it's still hard. But in that moment of time, I never would have thought that, one of my parents would be gone. So 4 years later, I lost my brother, had to overcome that, which again was not expecting him to pass. He was in the hospital, but he didn't have a history of being sick, and he wasn't sick to the point where that's what you thought would have happened next. So dealing with that. And then the other losses of other family members, but they were older, so could handle that a little bit better. And probably, like I said, the one thing that I really think about when you think about overcoming would be the fact that I had to overcome not being able to get pregnant or have kids in the way that I thought I would. So clearly, if you know me, I have kids, but you wouldn't, like, somebody just looking from the outside in is like, oh, she got 4 kids, she got all these kids, and think that everything was great. But if you don't know what I went through to get those 4 kids, so that was a big struggle for me, and mainly because I really wanted to have a family. I knew from an early age that I wanted to be married, I wanted to have kids, and you are, well, at least in my household, I'll just speak for me, it was taught that you wait until you get married to have kids. And I won't say that my parents scared me, but you grow up thinking like if you have sex one time, you'll
Right.
get pregnant. And so to have that in your mind and think like you just have to do it,
Right.
and when that did not happen for me, and I shouldn't say it didn't happen because I didn't have a hard time getting pregnant. I had a hard time staying pregnant. And the reason why I had a hard time staying pregnant is because I had some scarring in my fallopian tubes. And so, as nature works, you need your fallopian tubes for your embryo to make its way to your uterus, implant successfully, and grow. And my embryos would always get stuck in my fallopian tubes because of the scar tissue and everything else that was there. And so therefore I had 2 ectopic pregnancies, and to watch people around me, or what felt like there were people around me who were getting pregnant like that, and I was going through having these ectopic pregnancies, and like, why is this not working? Why are we not being successful with having a baby? That was extremely difficult. And I did feel like there was something wrong with me, mainly because I didn't know of many other people who had gone through that problem. I thought, people decided to have a baby, or maybe they didn't decide. It was oh, oops, I'm pregnant, and I just thought it would be that way for me. So
Right. Yeah, that's something, because a lot of people deal with infertility and we don't even know it. And a lot of people, they feel like something is wrong with them. And ask like, well, how come I'm different? How come, I can't do like everybody else?
right.
And I'm glad that you are open, about your journey, and sharing it, because it's nothing wrong with you, and it's nothing wrong with anybody who has challenging times getting pregnant. It's just how God made us, or just how the cookie crumble, and God has blessed man with ways to come up with things to help solve different problems. And when we know who we belong to, then we know that nothing that comes against us can harm us. And so, share with us that process in, because I know your story, I know your journey, and a lot of people think that IVF can be easy, where you just store the eggs up and you just grab an egg and it's egg and sperm meet, and then you reinsert it, and then it's all good. The only challenging part of it is just coming up with the funds to be able to do it. Share with us the real world experience of that process.
Yeah, sure. So when um, my OB told me that we would have to go see a specialist and do in vitro, I didn't really understand. I shouldn't say I wasn't aware. I knew about in vitro, I had heard about it, but didn't know what all it involved. And in that moment, I don't think I knew very many people who had gone through it. So again, it led to those feelings of being, inadequate. And why is this happening to me? And, what did I do wrong? And all of that. But I did, in the process, find out that there were two people who I knew, and neither one of them I knew really well at the time, but they were both willing to connect with me to talk to me about their process. And so that helped. But going to see the specialist was difficult in that, for me, I'm a frugal person, right? Janae, I um, am very economical. I like to think about how I spend money. And my entire life, I grew up, and this was nothing that was impressed upon me or taught to me. It's just, I guess, who I am at my core. I never liked for people spending a whole lot of money on me. It's not to say that I didn't think I was worthy of it, but I just felt like, no, that's a huge burden, and you don't need to do that for me. Like, bare minimum, I'll be okay. Like, it doesn't take all that to make me happy or to please me. And so when we went to see the specialist and just hearing how much it was going to cost to try, like you said, because there is no guarantee. And some people do think like, oh yeah, they're gonna take your eggs, and the sperm, and they combine and they just put it back in you, you get pregnant. And that's not the case. So it's like we gotta spend all this money to try to have a child. And because at that point it had truly been determined that it was me that, and I'm trying to word this correctly because I don't want to say that I was the blame, but it was me who had the issue. Like, my husband was fine. There was nothing wrong with Rob and his his parts and
Body parts. Men
trying to
parts.
say this right. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with him. It was me. And so I felt at fault. I felt like, wow, man, he probably wishes he had married somebody else. And this is just real talk. Like,
Yeah.
I can listen to myself now and think like this is so crazy. But in that moment, these are true feelings, real actual feelings that I had, and I had to wrestle with and deal with, because I was beating myself up thinking like it's because of me that we have to go through this, and it's because of me that we have to spend all this money just to try to have a child. And it was crazy. So mentally, just dealing with that was a lot. But then too, the unknown of, if we go through this and they put an embryo or two back, because obviously I have a set of twins and we did put two back the first time, and that was mainly because I wanted to make sure, like, we're paying all this money. I've had two pregnancy losses. I don't know that I can handle losing another one. So you put two, and if we get two, great, but we're putting in two so I can have not a guarantee, but just a better chance of getting one. That was a mindset. But in vitro, it takes a lot. Like, you have to, and I don't remember every single detail because, of course, what this happened back in 2009, when it's 2021. But I do remember having to get all these medications, taking shots, making sure you took pills at the right time on the right day, making sure you drank enough water when you needed to, being at the appointments at a particular time because they needed to test you or, check your ovaries and all this stuff, like do blood draws, like everything had to be timed just right. And so, like, it was difficult. There was a lot of pressure and thinking, again, I'm going back to that money. We're spending all this money. We got to get it right. I can't do anything wrong. And so, yeah, it was a lot, but I can say that, hey, it worked out. Like, we had success by the time they had harvested enough eggs from me. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I saw something flash up. By the time they harvested the eggs and, they took raw sperm, put them together, they did what they did. And we had the embryos of, I think there were 14 eggs. Of the 14, 10 fertilized, and of the 10, 4 were the best quality. And so when they put back the 2, got pregnant, and it was I couldn't believe it, because all the other pregnancies they ended, had to, deal with the termination part, but it was nerve-wracking to say the least. Every day it's just thinking, like, are they okay? Is everything going well? Go to the doctor's appointments, making sure, can you hear their heartbeats? Like, are they moving? And so it was a lot. It was an emotional journey, the financial stress, the just the physical stress, all of it. It was a lot.
Right.
I can say now it was worth it.
Right, definitely, because you look not only one and a set of twins, but you have 4 beautiful princess ballerinas. Who are actually one who's an actual ballerina. We have a gymnast, 2 gymnasts, and one we're waiting to find out which path she's traveling.
Right.
Right. Because what are your share with the ages of your princesses?
Yeah. So the oldest 2, the twins, are 10. And then my next daughter is 8. And the last one will actually be 4 tomorrow. Tomorrow's her birthday.
Yes. Oh, wow.
Tomorrow, March 8th. National Women's
Yeah.
Day. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's something. But one thing I wanted to point out, because I know that, someone may be watching this who is, going through in vitro right now as we speak, or someone who may be considering, doing it. If you heard, like Nikki said, it's a lot. It's an emotional roller coaster. You don't know. It's not a guarantee, but when you put your faith and hope in God, you see what happens. And she received not only one blessing, but 4 blessings. And like she said, she had two pregnancies, right, that you lost. And the second one, I believe you almost lost your own life, correct?
Correct.
And so, we have to, sometimes life does not always go the way we planned, go the way we hoped, but we have to continue to trust God and listen to the voice within, because he speaks to us and he guides us, and he lets us know which way to go. And just because he tells you which way to go does not mean it's going to be an easy path, But if we know whose we belong to, whose we are, then we know that whatever path it is, the end is going to be good, And so I agree with you in the fact that a lot of people, even myself, because you see people popping out babies left and right, like growing up, right? Your friends popping out babies left and right. So you're like, oh, okay. So when it comes to your turn, you're like, well, hey, I can do the same thing, right? But challenges come. And, I had to go on bed rest with my first daughter, life threatening at 14 weeks, then again at 18 weeks, then got an infection that had to go in the hospital at 23 weeks, because the membrane's just holding her in, and then got an infection at 27 weeks. So it's like, okay, really, and then, with my son, he was fine, birth, whatever, no problems, but ended up with food allergies, so you think when you go through something that once you get past it, that you have your badge of honor. Like, I'm done. Signed, sealed, delivered. I went through my trials. I passed my test. I am done. But I'm here to say that is not. You're not. And with your with your 3 pregnancies, via in vitro, were they all the same or were they different?
Oh no, they were totally different. Like you with the twins, I had to go on bed rest. They actually tried to come at 28. I was like 27 or 28 weeks. I started having contractions and they put me in the hospital, had to give me, I forget whatever they give you to try to stop the contractions, but had to go on complete bed. They were able to successfully stop the contractions. So labor stopped. And once I was able to get settled in the hospital, they sent me home and I had to go on full bed rest. Because before then, I think I was on partial bed rest. I was no longer going into work, but I was working from home. And they then told me, okay, you can only get up to go to the bathroom. That's it. Like, you need to lay down, keep your feet up. And so that was very different. I wanted to get out, and I remember not being able to help put their nursery together. My mother-in-law, thank God for her, came down and helped to paint the room and do everything. But I felt like, man, I've been waiting for this moment and I couldn't participate.
Experience it.
Yeah. So, but that was the first pregnancy. The second pregnancy, I actually was dealing with, I didn't have hyperemesis, but I did deal with.
Okay, before you pass on, you said a big word. So let's break that down.
Oh, sorry. Hyperemesis. Yes, that's when some women who get pregnant, basically it feels like morning sickness, just nonstop. Like, they can't eat, they don't keep anything down. I know women who have lost weight had to go to the hospital and be put on an IV for hydration. So it's a really, really, really bad condition to have while you're pregnant. And so I didn't have that, but my morning sickness lasted for well until like week 20 with my second pregnancy. And you would have thought that I would have had that with the twins, thinking like just with multiple babies, just the hormone levels, but they were fine. Like, my morning sickness with them ended right with the first trimester. With the second pregnancy, that morning sickness, like I said, I can't remember if it was week 20, week 21, but that was the big thing with her. And then the last pregnancy, I was 37, 38. So I could just tell the difference in carrying a child versus in my early 30s. I had a lot of aches and pains, and I can't remember the name. What is it called? But I guess then cartilage too, like after, giving birth, because I had a C-section with the twins, and then I had a VBAC, which, if I need to explain that, a vaginal birth after cesarean section. So I pushed out my third child, but had issues with that, like fourth degree tears, infections, you name it. Took a long time to heal from her. And then, like I said, that last pregnancy was just really, really hard in terms of walking, moving, getting out of the bed. Had a lot of aches and pains with that pregnancy. So yeah, each pregnancy was totally different. But
Right, right. And it sounds like you not only did you have to, can you mute? Not only did you have to overcome the obstacle of just trying to get pregnant, and get the babies here, but then once you were pregnant, then you had to overcome the process of carrying them full term, and then once they were delivered or born, because like say your twins, you C-section, and the other two you birthed them out. Once that was done, you had to overcome that process. So just as Nikki said in the beginning, if we are alive and walking this earth, we have something that we have to overcome. And we will continue to have to overcome until we're no longer walking the earth. And I believe that once if you can accept that and change your mindset and know that something is going to come against me, but I have the strength and I have the power to get through it. And that no matter what comes against me, I choose to win always, because the only way you can fail, the only way that you can succumb to what is trying to tear you down, and I mean literally trying to tear you down, because Nikki and her husband wanted a family, and something was preventing them from having that family. And they could have easily said, okay, well, you know what, let's just opt out and get dogs. You know, we'll have animals, dogs and cats. But no, they knew that God put inside of them that they are to go forward, be fruitful, and multiply. And boy, did they multiply. 4. So just be encouraged and just know that whatever it is you're going through, whatever it is you're facing, that it does not have to beat you down unless you allow it to beat you down. You have Nikki here. She shared all the things some of the things she can recall that she's had to overcome, deaths, father passing, brother passing, transferring from new schools, not one time, not 2 times, but I believe she said 4 times. And then, you know, trying to start her family and having to deal with 2 losses with that. You know, that in itself can take you out, you know, because a miscarriage is hard, and a lot of people don't. Some people don't give it its just due because the baby was not physically here on earth and they couldn't hold it. But that baby was real. And it was real inside of Nikki and other moms who experienced that. And until you walk in someone else's shoes, you never can truly understand what they go through. But just trust and know that it's real. It's real. And count yourself fortunate if you have not ever had to experience that. So, Nikki, for those out there who are dealing with any type of trial or tribulation, what advice or encouragement you would give them having gone through your life's journey?
Yeah, I think I would say to not, I would tell them to share their story. And if they don't want to just share it openly with the world, share it with somebody. Be willing to be vulnerable, because that's when people know that they can do something to help you. Or I'd say ask for help. Don't try to deal with the situation alone. Find a group. If you don't want to talk to somebody that you know, find a support group for whatever it is that you're dealing with, because I don't like misery loves company, but it is something to be said about being able to connect with somebody or a group of people who have experienced what you've experienced. And if you know that they've come out on the other side, then that just only gives you a little bit of inspiration and encouragement to know that you too can come out on the other side and be a survivor, a victor, or conqueror, whatever you want to name it, with whatever situation that you're dealing with. So my biggest thing would be like, don't hold it in. Share with somebody and just be open and honest about it so that you can receive the help and support you need.
Yes, yes. And on that note, as we close out, I do want to invite everyone back this same time next Sunday. I will be having another guest that I will be sharing. That I will be sharing with you, and we will be doing this throughout the month of March because this is a heavy emotional month for myself, you know, dealing with my daughter and my brother, Heavenversaries this month. But if you know me, you know I don't only try to survive something, but I try to thrive through it, because as long as we still have breath in our bodies, then we still have a purpose here on this earth. And with both Nikki and myself, being that we are overcomers, we are going to rock out. Next week, I will be on my YouTube channel. So please, if you haven't subscribed, go there and subscribe so you can be notified when we go live next Sunday and the Sundays after. But take what you have learned here tonight and just remember that no matter what you are going through, you are an overcomer. And as long as you continue to choose to win, then nothing can take you out. All right, Nikki, let's rock out. All right, everybody. See you later. And check out this music from Mandisa, because you are an overcomer. Trust, believe, and act on it. Until next time, keep the dialogue going.